The last human died with her eyes open, staring at the stars. At least that's what they were supposed to believe. The Galactic Consortium had declared humanity extinct after their homeworld became uninhabitable, the final punishment for a species. Too ambitious, too clever, too dangerous to be permitted to spread among the stars. Records stated that Commander Isolde Kahl, the final defender of Earth's orbital sanctuary, had perished in 2781 CE, marking the end of humanity's brief but tumultuous presence in galactic affairs. 6,000 years later, Archon Vix of the Consortium. Historical authority hovered above the derelict space station designated Lazarus Point. Its ancient hull was pockmarked with micrometeorite impacts, its once proud insignia of Earth's United Nations now faded to a ghostly outline. Scans detect no biological signatures, reported Nix Mira, his cybernetic assistant. Station matches, historical records of abandoned human outpost. But something troubled Vix. The Consortium archives described humanity's extinction as complete, yet rumors persisted among the Outer Rim worlds, whispers of human vessels fleeing beyond the galactic arm of technologies that could suspend life indefinitely. Deploy exploration drones, Vix commanded. Full-spectrum analysis. As the drones penetrated the station's hull, Vix reviewed humanity's historical file. A primitive species by current standards, they had nevertheless displayed remarkable adaptability. Where other species specialized over millennia, humans had generalized, masters of nothing but capable of everything. Their sudden rise and equally abrupt disappearance had been a cautionary tale taught to younglings across 17,000 worlds. Archon! Nix Mira's voice carried an unusual harmonic, the closest her kind came to expressing surprise. The station's core systems are drawing power. Impossible. The station has been dormant for 6,214 standard years, she confirmed. Yet internal diagnostics indicate a controlled power conservation protocol, not degradation. The primary drone reached the central chamber, its visuals revealing a cavernous space filled with thousands of sleek metallic pods arranged in concentric circles. At the center stood a single crystalline chamber, larger than the others, frost slowly melting from its surface. Life signs detected, Nix Mira reported. One human biosignature activating. Vix's tendrils coiled tightly against his thorax. The Consortium declared them extinct. This is a deliberate deception, came a new voice over the comm, speaking flawless Consortium standard. Or perhaps, Archon Vix, merely a profound misunderstanding. The crystal chamber at the center hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor. From within emerged a figure, bipedal, tall even by human standards, with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. I am Rafe Noor, guardian of the sleepers. The human's voice remained unnervingly calm, as it donned a garment that seemed to flow like liquid across its form. And you have just awakened humanity from its long night? Behind him, thousands of pods began to pulse with blue light. What have you done? Whispered Vix. Rafe Noor smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp for an herbivore, too blunt for a carnivore. The omnivore's compromise that had made humans so adaptable and so dangerous. I haven't done anything yet, Archon. His gaze shifted to the drones hovering around him. But I will. The Consortium Emergency Council convened within hours. Representatives of 700 dominant species gathered in holographic assembly, their forms shimmering with agitation as Archon Vix delivered his report. The human facility contains over 10,000 cryogenic pods, he explained. The being who calls himself Rafe Noor claims to be merely the first of what he terms the vanguard, selected individuals programmed to awaken in sequence if their sanctuary was discovered. High Counselor Zilvra, whose crystalline species had evolved long after humanity's supposed extinction, rotated her facets in the traditional gesture of skepticism. Why would they hide? The ancient wars ended millennia ago. The species that drove humans to extinction have themselves fallen to dust. That is precisely what troubles me, Vix replied. According to historical records, humanity was defeated utterly. Yet this facility suggests a coordinated escape, a deliberate preservation. Across the galaxy, other dormant human stations were being discovered, each containing thousands of preserved humans in suspended animation. Early reports indicated that 7 vanguards had already awakened, each implementing protocols established 6 millennia earlier. Meanwhile, aboard Lazarus, Point Rafe Noor systematically revived select individuals. First among them was Lysithea Voss, whose eyes adjusted to the light of a universe that had continued without humanity for longer than human civilization had existed before their disappearance. "Status report," she demanded, her voice hoarse from disuse. "The Prometheus protocol activated as designed," Rafe informed her, helping her stand as her atrophied muscles remembered their purpose. "Our sanctuary remained undetected for 6,000 years, 214 standard years, and 73 days. Lysithea processed this with remarkable composure. "And the others?" "Being awakened according to sequence. Exobiologists first, then engineers, then tactical specialists." She nodded, then asked the question that would determine humanity's course. "And the beast? Has it slumbered as we have?" Rafe's expression darkened. "No, it has grown, evolved. The consortium that sought our extinction has expanded to encompass half the galaxy. Their technology has advanced, but their fundamental philosophy remains unchanged. Controlled evolution, prescribed development, stable hierarchy. Everything we fought against," Lysithea whispered. "Everything that would have prevented humanity from becoming what we must be," Rafe agreed. In the medical bay, Dr. Ekon Sahir supervised the revival of the next wave, 100 specialists chosen millennia ago for this very moment. Unlike the confused, disoriented awakening portrayed in ancient films, these revivals were methodical. Each human emerged with full cognitive function, their bodies preserved at peak condition, their minds enhanced by neural interfaces that had continued learning throughout their long sleep. "The universe has changed," Ekon explained to the assembled group. "But our mission has not. Operation Prometheus never ended. It merely paused." Across the chamber, weapons specialist Keziah Dorn examined the current consortium military specifications displayed on a holographic terminal. "Their technology has advanced incrementally, not exponentially," she observed. "They build on what came before, never starting anew." "Stability prioritized over innovation," agreed theoretical physicist Rivka Nassar. "Just as we predicted." While the humans prepared, Archon Vix remained aboard his ship, maintaining communication with both the Consortium Council and Rafe Noor. Something about the humans' confidence disturbed him. Not the arrogance of a primitive confronting superior forces, but the calm certainty of one who holds knowledge others lack. "Your species has been granted a remarkable opportunity," Vix transmitted to Rafe. "The consortium of today is not the same entity that drove humanity to the brink. We can negotiate your peaceful reintegration." Rafe's reply came after a prolonged pause. "We're not interested in reintegration, Archon. We've seen what your consortium does to integrated species. You assign them roles based on your assessment of their capabilities. You determine their population growth, their resource allocation, their technological development. We ensure harmony," Vix countered. "Each species contributes according to their strengths." "And who determines those strengths?" Rafe asked. "Who decides what a species may become?" Before Vix could answer, Lysithea joined the transmission. "Humanity does not fit within your system, Archon. We never did. That's why your predecessors tried to exterminate us." "And now," Rafe added, "you're about to discover why they failed." The first indication that something had fundamentally changed came when three consortium science vessels simultaneously went dark near the Cygnus arm. Their final transmissions reported detecting an unknown energy signature emanating from what appeared to be empty space. Hours later, a trading outpost in the Epsilon sector detected an object approaching at impossible speeds, bypassing all early warning systems. It passed through the outpost's defensive shield grid as if it didn't exist, then vanished again without a trace. The consortium deployed its rapid response fleet, 27 warships equipped with the most advanced tracking and weapon systems. They established a perimeter around what intelligence suggested was the humans' likely flight path. High Counselor Zilvra personally commanded the operation. "We must contain this situation," she instructed the assembled captains. "These humans are dangerous precisely because they are desperate, a cornered species with nothing to lose." What the consortium failed to understand was that humanity was neither cornered nor desperate. They were executing a plan 6 millennia in the making. Aboard Lazarus Point, now transformed into a command center, Rafe and Lysithea stood before, a holographic display showing the movements of consortium forces. "They've deployed exactly as the simulations predicted," Lysithea observed. "Remarkable how little their tactical doctrine has evolved." Rafe nodded. "When you believe you've eliminated all meaningful threats, innovation becomes unnecessary." The adjacent chamber, 500 fully awakened humans were connecting to neural interfaces unlike anything the consortium had ever encountered. Unlike the cybernetic augmentations common among advanced species, these interfaces didn't merely enhance cognitive function, they merged the collective consciousness of their users while maintaining individual identity. At the center of this human network stood Mara Osiris, her slender frame belying the power she now commanded. 6,000 years ago, she had been Earth's foremost expert in quantum consciousness theory. Now she was something else entirely, the nexus of humanity's greatest weapon. "The beast is ready," she announced, her voice overlaid with subtle harmonics, as she spoke simultaneously through her physical form and the station's communication system. Rafe touched a control panel, opening a direct channel to Archon Vix's vessel. "You wanted to know why the consortium failed to exterminate humanity, Archon. You're about to find out." Across the perimeter established by the consortium fleet, space itself seemed to ripple. Sensors detected nothing, but every living being aboard those ships felt something, a presence pressing against the boundaries of perception. "What is this?" demanded Zilvra as her ship's systems began reporting impossible readings. The answer came not through communication channels, but directly into the minds of every being in the fleet. A telepathic intrusion that bypassed all defenses. "We are humanity. Ascendant." The voice was neither male nor female, neither singular nor plural. It resonated with the harmonics of thousands of minds thinking as one. Aboard his ship, Vix watched in horror as the space between stars seemed to fold. Where nothing had been detected moments before, something now existed, a vessel of impossible proportions, its architecture defying conventional physics. 6,000 years ago, came Rafe's voice over the comm, humanity faced extinction. Our bodies could be destroyed, but we had already begun to transcend physical limitation. What your ancestors tried to exterminate wasn't humanity as a biological entity. It was what we were becoming. On the holographic display, the massive human vessel, if vessel was even the correct term, began to pulse with energy that consortium sensors couldn't classify. "The beast isn't a weapon, Archon," Rafe continued. "It's us. What humanity becomes when we think as one." As the consortium fleet scrambled to respond, the human consciousness expanded outward, touching minds across thousands of light years. Not attacking, not destroying, revealing. For the first time in 6 millennia, the galaxy remembered humanity not as extinct primitives, but as what they truly were, the species that refused to accept limitation. The consortium had always prided itself on understanding the fundamental nature of intelligence. Its member species represented every known form of sentience, crystalline hive minds, plasma-based consciousnesses, even the distributed awareness of the gas giant's atmospheric dwellers. Yet none had prepared them for humanity's return. How? Is this possible? High Counselor Zilvra demanded as her flagship's systems continued reporting contradictory data. Their technology should be primitive compared to ours. That assumes they continued along the same technological path, Archon Vix replied, his voice unnaturally calm as he watched the impossible unfold before him. But they didn't. They diverged. The human vessel, now designated Prometheus Prime, in consortium records, remained stationary at the edge of the defensive perimeter. It appeared to be constructed from some form of matter that existed simultaneously in physical space and somewhere else, a material that responded to thought as readily as to physical laws. Aboard Lazarus Point, Mara Osiris stood at the center. Of the human network, her consciousness extended far beyond the confines of her physical form. Through her, 500 awakened humans projected their collective will across interstellar distances, bridging gaps that should have required years to traverse. "We're receiving responses," she reported, her voice echoing oddly as if speaking, from multiple locations simultaneously. 17 species are acknowledging our presence. Lysithea studied the incoming data. Most are from the outer territories, the regions where consortium control is weakest, and where divergent thought is most likely to survive, Rafe added. The plan they had set in motion millennia ago was neither conquest nor revenge. Humanity had recognized, even before their supposed extinction, that the galaxy's greatest threat wasn't any particular species, but rather the philosophy embodied by the consortium, the belief that evolution and development must be controlled, that chaos must be suppressed in favor of order. Human history had demonstrated precisely the opposite. That order emerged from chaos, that restriction inhibited growth, that diversity, even dangerous diversity, was essential for advancement. Dr. Ikon Sahir joined them, his dark eyes reflecting the glow of the holographic displays. The second wave of awakening is complete. 1,000 more humans are now conscious and connected to the network. With each awakened human, the beast, the collective consciousness they had created, grew stronger, not through force multiplication but through exponential complexity. Each mind added new dimensions of thought, new perspectives, new possibilities. In the Epsilon sector, 3 young species that had evolved after humanity's disappearance suddenly found themselves experiencing something unprecedented. Direct, mental contact with beings whose thoughts operated on principles their languages had no words to describe. On the ancient world of Taraxis, where the silicon-based Vexar had spent 50,000 years evolving elaborate social hierarchies based on immutable genetic categories, individuals began questioning the foundations of their society for the first time in recorded history. The beast wasn't conquering. It was liberating. Not through force, but through connection. Consortium vessels attempting to interrupt these connections discovered their weapon systems unresponsive. Not disabled or countered, simply irrelevant. The humans weren't operating in a realm where conventional weapons held meaning. "They're ignoring our ultimatum," reported Zilvra's tactical officer. "And our long-range sensors indicate similar vessels appearing near 17 other systems." "Those aren't vessels," Vix corrected, his understanding growing clearer with each passing moment. "They're extensions, projections. The humans have somehow externalized their collective consciousness." Zilvra's crystalline structure flashed with patterns indicating deep concern. "Are you suggesting they've achieved true psychic ability?" "That's merely theoretical." "For us," Vix agreed, "but perhaps not for them." Meanwhile, Rafe opened a direct channel to Vix, bypassing the consortium command structure. "Your historical records were incomplete, Archon. Humanity didn't flee Earth because we were defeated. We left because we had outgrown it, both physically and metaphysically. "What do you want?" Vix asked simply. "The same thing we've always wanted," Rafe replied. "The freedom to become what we might be, and the same freedom for every sentient species." As he spoke, the beast continued its work, not invading minds but opening them, showing them possibilities they had never imagined, connections they had never considered. Across the galaxy, the rigid structures of consortium thought began to crack. On 17 worlds across the galactic arm, revolution erupted not with violence but with silence. Species that had served designated functions within the consortium for thousands of years simply stopped, production halted, services ceased, communication networks fell silent. The High Council convened in emergency session, their holographic forms now showing visible signs of stress, unusual for beings who prided themselves on emotional control. "The humans have weaponized consciousness itself," declared Counselor Erikson of the methane-breathing Thexil. "They are disrupting the very foundation of our society." "Not disrupting," corrected Vix, who had been studying the patterns of change. "Transforming. They're offering choices where the consortium offers only direction." High Counselor Zilvra's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained fury. "This is precisely why their kind was deemed too dangerous to persist. They create chaos wherever they go." "Or perhaps," suggested a new voice as an unauthorized hologram materialized in the center of the council chamber, "we create possibility." The figure was human. Not Rafe, but Lysithia Voss. Her presence projected across. Interstellar distances through means the consortium could neither block nor understand. 6,000 years ago, your predecessors feared what humanity might become, she addressed the assembled council. They were right to be afraid. Not because we intended harm, but because we represented an approach to existence fundamentally incompatible with consortium philosophy. "You were deemed evolutionarily unstable," Zilvra responded. "Your species' tendency toward radical adaptation threatened galactic equilibrium." Lysithia's hologram smiled. "Precisely. Where you see instability, we see growth. Where you enforce equilibrium, we embrace change." Throughout the council chamber, communication devices activated simultaneously as similar conversations occurred across thousands of worlds. The beast, humanity's collective consciousness, was initiating contact with every sentient species simultaneously. Aboard Prometheus Prime, the human vessel that existed partially outside conventional space, Mara, Osiris directed this unprecedented communication. Through her, the awakened humans spoke not as conquerors or liberators, but as catalysts. For too long, the species of this galaxy have been categorized, limited, and directed, she transmitted. Evolution itself has been constrained by a philosophy that values predictability over potential. As she spoke, something remarkable began to happen. Species that had never questioned their role within the consortium hierarchy began to wonder. Individuals who had accepted limitation as natural began to imagine alternatives. On the industrial world of Nerix, the insectoid vril, designated as a worker species for 12,000 years, collectively ceased their labor and turned their compound eyes to the stars. In the gas mines of Jovara, the photosynthetic luminar redirected the energy they had been harvesting for the consortium into creating the first art their species had produced in 9,000 years. The consortium's control was unraveling not through force, but through idea, the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever wielded. "You cannot comprehend what you're unleashing," Zilvra warned Lysithia. "Some species cannot handle freedom. Some minds break when facing infinite choice." "Perhaps," Lysithia acknowledged, "but that decision belongs to them, not to you." Meanwhile, Rafe continued his dialogue with Archon Vix, who alone among the consortium leadership seemed capable of understanding the transformation occurring around them. Your ancestors believed they destroyed us, Rafe explained. In reality, they forced our evolution. When we could no longer exist as we were, we became something else, the beast. Vic said quietly. A crude term for a beautiful truth, Rafe corrected. We learned to exist as both individuals and collective, to think with many minds while maintaining the spark of singular creativity that made humanity unique. Around them, the galaxy continued to transform. The beast didn't impose humanity's will. It merely removed the constraints that had prevented other species from discovering their own. As the fifth day of humanity's return drew to a close, the consortium faced an uncomfortable truth. The order they had maintained for 50,000 years had been revealed as artificial. The careful balance of species, the controlled development of technology, the prescribed paths of evolution, all were crumbling before the simple power of choice. The final confrontation came not with weapons, but with words. 7 days after humanity's return, representatives of every consortium species gathered, not in the High Council chamber, but in the vast open space surrounding Prometheus Prime. Some came physically in vessels of varying design. Others projected their presence across distances. A few existed only as patterns of thought, having transcended physical form entirely. At the center of this unprecedented gathering stood 3 humans, Rafe Noor, Lysithea Voss, and Mara Osiris, the triumvirate who had awakened the beast and changed the course of galactic history. We did not return to conquer, Rafe addressed the assembled beings. We returned to remember and to be remembered. For 6,000 years, we slept, continued Lysithea. Not in defeat, but in preparation. Not hiding, but becoming. Mara completed their thought. We knew that imposing our will would make us no better than those who sought our extinction. Instead, we offer a choice. That choice was simple, yet profound. Continue as part of the consortium, bound by its rules and protected by its certainties, or embark on a new path, one where evolution was unguided, where development was unrestricted, where each species determined its own destiny. High Counselor Zilvra, representing the Old Order, made her final appeal. Consider what you surrender. The consortium has maintained peace for 50,000 years. We have prevented resource wars, technological catastrophes, evolutionary dead ends. We have been the guardians of countless species who would have destroyed themselves without our guidance. Perhaps, acknowledged Rafe. But at what cost? How many potential futures never came to be because they were deemed too risky? How many forms of consciousness never emerged because they didn't fit your models? From the gathered representatives came a chorus of voices, some speaking for the first time in millennia. The Orabel choose to become. The Vril choose to become. The Thexil choose to become. One by one, species that had been defined by the consortium reclaimed their right to define themselves. Not all chose to break away. Some recognized the security in structure, the safety in limitation. The consortium would continue, transformed, reduced, but not destroyed. In the final moments of the assembly, Archon Vix approached the human triumvirate. Unlike his colleagues, who had retreated to maintain what control they could, Vix had witnessed the entirety of humanity's return with growing understanding. I have studied your history, he told them. The records we preserved speak of a species driven by conflict, by dominance, by conquest. Yet what I have witnessed these past days contradicts everything we believed about human nature. Mara smiled. What you're witnessing is not contradiction, but evolution. Humanity was indeed shaped by conflict, including the conflict within ourselves, between what we were and what we might become. And now? Vix asked. What does humanity become next? Rafe gestured toward the stars, where thousands more cryogenic sanctuaries were awakening, releasing hundreds of thousands of humans who had slept through the turning of ages. We become possibility, he answered simply, as does every species that chooses its own path. In the years that followed, the galaxy witnessed an explosion of diversity unprecedented in its history. Species that had been confined to narrow evolutionary channels explored new forms, new relationships, new modes of existence. Technologies developed in ways the consortium had never permitted, sometimes failing catastrophically, but often achieving breakthroughs that altered the very fabric of galactic civilization. Humanity, having served as catalyst, did not seek to rule this new order. Instead, they integrated themselves into the complex web of relationships emerging across the stars, teachers at times, students at others, but always guardians of the principle that had saved them, the right of sentient beings to determine their own destiny. The beast, that collective consciousness born from humanity's desperation, became something else entirely. Not a weapon, but a bridge, connecting minds across the gulf of species and space. Through it, beings who could never have communicated found common ground, shared understanding, built collaborations that transcended biological limitation. 1,000 years after humanity's return, Rafe Noor, preserved through technologies even the consortium had never imagined, stood aboard a vessel unlike any that had come before. Created through the collaborative effort of 17 species, it was designed to pierce the barrier between galaxies, to carry the seeds of this new civilization beyond the confines of the Milky Way. Beside him stood not Lysithea or Mara, who had long since transcended physical form, but Vix, the former Archon who had chosen to join humanity's journey rather than cling to the remnants of the old order. "Was this your plan all along?" Vix asked, as they prepared to make the leap into intergalactic space, to transform not just yourselves, but the entire galaxy? Rafe smiled at his old adversary, now friend. There was no plan beyond survival at first, then no plan beyond awakening. What came after was not humanity's creation alone, but the collective achievement of every species that chose to become something more than what they were told they could be. As their vessel accelerated toward the void between galaxies, Rafe reflected on the words that had guided humanity through its darkest hour and its greatest triumph. Words now inscribed on monuments across 1,000 worlds. The measure of a species is not what it is, but what it might become. Behind them, the galaxy pulsed with the light of billions of minds, each following their own path, each writing their own story in the endless book of possibility. The beast that humanity had awakened was no longer feared, but embraced, not as destroyer or savior, but as the purest expression of the potential that sleeps within all sentient beings. The potential to transcend limitation, to overcome definition, to become more than what came before, and in that becoming, to find not just survival but meaning.